How was 4chan connected to the origins of Zeal and Ardor?
Well, in the prior mentioned boredom, I would go to 4chan's music board and ask people to name genres, and I would take two suggestions, say reggae and grindcore, and make a silly song of it in like a half an hour. And one day, a person said black music in a different tone, and another person said black metal. And instead of being offended by the tone, I figured the bigger middle finger would be to have a good song, and that's what I did. And just because of post, I'm here.
This is Tom for Ghost Cult, and we're delighted to be joined by Manuel from Zeal and Ardor, who at the time of this interview are just about to release their fourth album, Greif. And yeah, I'm excited to talk to you, to talk about the album. I've been listening to it, enjoying it. We're going to be covering it for Ghost Cult, and another writer is going to be writing about it. And I'm intrigued to see how they describe it, because I'm pondering myself when I listen to it. You know, I've seen the band described as avant-garde metal, neo soul, black metal. All of these are, I guess I can see elements, but I think you do a great job on the latest album with incorporating different elements together. You know, there are little black metal motifs. There are kind of lullaby aspects to it. There's kind of like dark rock in it. But I think the way that you blend all these styles together is done really, really well. But you've been doing this for a while, right? When did you sort of first find yourself intrigued by sort of incorporating various different styles of music together, or is that sort of just what you've grown up doing?
I think that's what I really liked about music, and I kind of gravitated towards it. It would be a lie to say like I made a conscious effort to subvert genres or something pretentious like that. I just, because to me a good song sometimes is like a good joke where you establish something and then you subvert it, and
Yeah.
that just I don't know, it's simple but it just hits with me, and I guess that's what I strive for.
And you started out, or maybe started out is the wrong way to put it, but I know that early on you were in metal bands, or at least you had one metal band.
Mm-hmm.
So was there a time period when you were like, I'm a metal guy? Because I know how it often is like, you know, when you're a teenager, you're like, this is the thing and everything else sucks. Was it like that for you for a while?
I feel called out, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's metal is such a funny thing because there's like this tribal element to it because it's like this subgenre and like this subculture, but also there's this the Emperor's New Clothes aspect to it because everything it's so close to being silly,
Yeah.
but we as a group have decided no, this is cool actually, and it's just one 6-year-old girl pointing at someone going a way of just crumbling. We have this unspoken bond, I guess, that had nothing to do with your question.
No,
Sorry.
no, no. That's all good. So, well, so given that you have had these black metal associations, I don't know if your previous metal bands were black metal at all. Did you ever like get yourself involved with corpse paint, for example?
No, and I think that is a boon. That I have done many a stupid thing in my blunder years, but that was one that I omitted, luckily.
And are you you're in Basel right now, and that is where you're from originally.
Born and raised.
So you moved to New York in 2012. Was that your first taste of living abroad?
It was, yeah.
And that was just not long before I was going to say Zeal and Ardor formed, but essentially you created it as a solo project in the beginning. Are
Mhm.
those two things connected? Were you moving to New York kind of with the purpose that you wanted to have a new musical project, or did that happen by chance?
Yes, but it was a different one because I had the delusions of being a pop artist at the time.
Ah, because you had a chamber pop project.
Yeah, which is huge. It's very popular. Don't look it up. But I got frustrated with that, and then I kind of wanted to do something as vacation in a weird way. And then I did that, and now I get to talk to you. So that's weird.
And tell me a bit, how was 4chan connected to the origins of Zeal and Ardor?
Well, in the prior mentioned boredom, I would go to 4chan's music board and ask people to name genres, and I would take two suggestions, say reggae and grindcore, and make a silly song of it in like a half an hour. And one day, a person said black music in a different tone, and another person said black metal. And instead of being offended by the tone, I figured the bigger middle finger would be to have a good song, and that's what I did. And it's just because of a shit post, I'm here.
And that is
Honestly.
pretty well, because I guess, yeah, like if we unpick a little bit more the way you interpreted those terms, like you're kind of talking about the sort of origins of American slave music, I suppose, in terms of like what you've incorporated into the sound of the band.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that you can hear elements of that in the latest album. So what are sort of the reference points for you in terms of that style of music?
So there was this music archivist called Alan Lomax, who by the Smithsonian had the job to record the by then young nations music, folk music. So we'd go to Appalachian, music people. Well put, Manuel. And to other music people, and he would record field hollers from Black people, or even bluegrass. And those recordings were on wax rolls, so they have a very distinct sound quality to them, and that's what we tried to emulate with the prior records. And now we're trying to
It's all right. I think as long as you remain avant-garde, then like any
it's
kind of selling out comes with an
also,
asterisk.
yeah, I need always to say we would never name ourselves avant-garde, because that is the most
Okay. That feels too
douchey thing.
pretentious.
It is absolute. I mean, that is the most pretentious. That is the top tier. That's the summit. We're avant-garde.
Would you feel more comfortable saying experimental?
I get, yeah, because at least it's in English. It's not French,
Fair enough. I just hesitate sometimes to call bands experimental because somehow it has associations for me with like we're not quite sure what we're doing. We're just going to try something out.
which is what music is. It's literally that. I mean, unless you're, covering yourself. But I mean, because music is play, music is trying shit out. Music is literally an experiment. You at least in my creative process, it's iteration and trying and writing until an experiment yields something nice.
And thinking about like your process that you have and thinking about the latest album, like I was finding myself listening to some of the songs and you've got some incredibly catchy songs. Like I think the one that really sticks in my head particular is Fend You Off. You're this great anthemic chorus. And I really like this kind of like sort of lullaby verses with these bells. And I hear these different layers in the songs, and I wonder for you, like when you're sort of coming up with these songs, do you sort of hear them as big arrangements, or do you start with like little simple melodies that you can hum, or is it just totally variable from one track to another?
It starts with something small, and I treat it like with Lego pieces, and then I build on it, and through iteration and shoving things around, it kind of gets structure. Because my songs are pop songs cosplaying as metal songs.
I like that. It's a nice description.
Yeah, don't tell anyone, Mr. Journalist.
I'll keep it to myself.
No, it's fine. But it's because in the end, music just has to give you or instill some emotional reaction.
Mm.
And there's things that work and things that don't work, and you only figure it out through trying and failing in interesting ways.
See, now I'm really intrigued, and I'm pondering about this notion of pop music cosplaying as metal. So I want to get philosophical with you now and dig into this. So what then is sort of the essence of metal to you?
I think metal is. I mean, there's a fine line between ode and pastiche,
Mm.
but I think in its essence, it is a sound palette, I guess.
Hmm.
Abrasive guitars, fast and loud drums, and just harsh textures, I guess. Because there's no thematic over theme. There's no rhythm. It's not like a salsa or something where you have to count in a specific way.
Yeah.
So it is quite free. And I mean, yeah, in essence, I'm culturally appropriating Black music. I'm from Switzerland. I couldn't be further, from slave music. I'm not from Norway. I certainly haven't invented black metal, but everything is a remix. So
Do you feel like you have a bit of an imposter syndrome that somehow you're not entitled to take on these different forms in your music?
no. I think cultural appropriation, the idea is silly because cultural evolution thrives on merging cultures.
Mm.
And this auto segregation is it's just regressive, because
Yeah.
if you could spin it ad nauseum, where you would say someone in China can't play Bach because it's Western music.
Yeah.
And I think then, you know, I don't know. It's gatekeeping, and
Yep.
gatekeeping has never really yielded great fruits.
No, I agree with you, especially if we take the idea that music is experimentation. It's like if you have to experiment within confines, that really limits you a lot in terms of what you might come up with.
I mean, but that's the thing. It's just my perception of it. I think other people thrive with limitations, and it can be fruitful to have, like, you know, a limited set of possibilities and try to do something interesting with that. But I'm easily bored. So
Yeah. Thinking about metal and thinking about maybe people's expectations of metal, like I was thinking to myself, well, I guess not all metal has to be dark. You know, you can have metal that's kind of funny, I guess, or
yeah, I
quirky
mean,
at least.
or even hopeful. I think what
Yeah.
Strapping Young Lad did, or what what's his face, the guy from Strapping Young Lad with
Devin Townsend.
Devin Townsend. He has, I, hope metal, I would
Yep.
call it. It's intrinsically like optimistic and pleasant, but
Yeah,
still
it's
abrasive
like
and harsh.
very big and like sonically powerful, but yeah,
Yeah,
it's not morose.
yeah. And it is kind of, you get a bit of whiplash at first, but it does work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess, you know, thinking again sort of more about counter expectations to what we might think of with metal, something that I felt like going through Greif that pops up is that it is dark, but there are also like quite quirky, almost like circus like elements. Like there's a couple of tracks that
How
make
dare
me
you?
think.
Sorry.
I should parentheses, when I say circus, I don't quite mean.
I know exactly what you mean. That's
Like,
what.
for example, disease. And it something that popped into my mind, and this is going to connect to the circus idea, is it made me think of Queens of the Stone Age a couple of times. And I know that Josh Homme's talked about, I always call him Josh Homme, by the way, and now I've been converted to call him Josh Homme. I don't know if it's Homme or Homme.
Now I'm insecure about it. Okay.
I think I saw an interview with him where he said that he started out when he learned guitar, he had a guitar teacher that played polka. So he basically learned to play polka.
Is it that interview where he's very obviously on cocaine?
The guitar moves one where they're really, really
Yeah.
sweaty. Yeah. And I thought that was really insightful in terms of like the kind of guitar style that he has. And I wouldn't particularly say that it's not like I hear the guitar lines on the album and I think, oh, it reminds me of Queens of Stone Age. But there is something sometimes in terms of the quirkiness that sort of gave me that association. Is that a direct link to you, or is that just a coincidence?
I mean, I have heard of the band you mentioned prior to this interview. I think it's honestly, like with Zeal and Ardor up until now, we had a very strict emotional range, and I think we kind of elbowed a little more room with this one.
Mm.
And I love Queens of the Stone Age, and I think it's a very, very specific modal thing that he does in a. It's gonna get nerdy for a second.
It's all right. You're allowed to do that.
Yeah. So what he does is he plays Mixolydian, but he has one semi step in there, which normally isn't there. And that just gives it that flavor. I wouldn't say I've stole it. Maybe have noticed it and incorporated it in my own work. So yeah.
That's cool. Going back a little bit, thinking about the history of the band and what was originally a solo project, did you always have the intention that it was going to become a band beyond just you? Like I think all of the albums, you had another drummer at least, right? But I don't know in the very, very beginning if you were doing sort of drum parts yourself.
Computer, yeah, that was just computer. No, very much not. I honestly, my dream vision of this project was I give this out anonymously and I can just reap the benefits and wallow in the despair of being an anonymous black metal musician. But then I got interviews and that kind of shit the bed there. It was very much a surprise, and we got offers to do live gigs, and I figured me and a laptop is probably not going to be the best show. And I kind of ad hoc just asked friends of mine and people I knew from the scene, and they've fucking committed 7 years of their lives to this. Honestly, it's this cascade of coincidences, and it for some reason it works, and for some reason it makes us happy.
And having had these musicians commit 7 years of their life to the band as a live entity, as a touring entity, why did you decide specifically for this album that now you were going to have a full band in the recording?
Honestly, it's way too late, because like Zeal and Ardor in my mind is at its best when we play live, and that is all to do with the people on stage. And I think it was just like a point of pride in myself that I said, no, I'm like this singular fucking mysterious genius asshole. And then they come into the studio and they play shit that I could never play. And I have to yield to the idea that this is going to be a better product if I'm not an egomaniac. We can actually do this together. Yeah.
Would you consider yourself to be like first and foremost a singer or a musician?
A musician. I think I'm a utilitarian singer. Because I enjoy writing more than I enjoy singing.
And when you say you enjoy writing, are you including like writing music and lyrics, or one specifically versus the other?
Music more than lyrics. I enjoy writing lyrics too, but music is, it's such a weird thing. You can, out of nowhere, you can have people emote the same thing that you emote, and there's even like this time travel aspect to it where, I mean, I'm sure you remember the first time you listened to a song you particularly like, and when you listen to it now, you're kind of transported back to then. That's
Yeah.
insane. If that isn't magical, I don't know what is. So
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to remove any street cred I had with most people, but you made me pop into my head. I think, yeah, the first time when I had Crash Boom Bang by Roxette on
Mhm.
cassette, it's like, I know exactly what the holiday was that I bought that
Yes,
album and I
yeah.
was listening to it.
And somehow it's ingrained, like even neurologically. I think it's the second place. The first and most direct way to do that is olfactory, like when you smell something.
Yeah.
And the close second is music. And we have no, I mean, that evolutionarily, that has no sense. What kind of benefit could that have for
Yeah.
for an animal on this planet? It's bizarre.
The olfactory thing is really funny, actually, because right now at this moment, I'm in Oxford, in my mum's house, but I've formally moved back to Glasgow in Scotland, where I used to live after being abroad for years. Like I was living in Czech Republic, I was living in Germany, and I've actually come back to the flat that I used to live in Glasgow. And one of my best friends came back to visit me, and we walked in the front door, and he was like, "Oh, this freaks me out. It smells exactly the same as it did before." It's like this is the thing that hit
Yeah.
him, and it hit me as well. And it's like I wouldn't really consciously be able to say what it smelt like, but it's like such a specific, memorable smell that reactivates all these memories.
And I think a big part of that is like you can't reminisce about scents. Like I can imagine in my mind's eye things that I saw when I was a kid. I can't emulate a smell. So I don't know. It's great music interview we're having. It's super interesting.
The
Sorry.
conversation can go wherever it goes. That's absolutely
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
There's no fixed model here.
Mhm.
Let's just to touch on the title of the album. So it's Greif, Greif,
Mhm.
and I understand that this is connected to some kind of, I think it's actually a Swiss mythical creature, if I've got that right. And I
Yeah.
think you do actually even reference it in the first song
Yeah.
on the album, The Bird, the Lion, and the Wildkin. Can you tell me a bit about how this creature is?
Absolutely
Um...
not. No. Uh,
Simple answer.
no, it's an old tradition in my hometown of Basel. So it's the city is divided by the river Rhine. One half is like the working class people, and the other half is like, the rich people. And since for 800 years in the poor part of town, the griffin or the Greif would appear and dance and give shit out to the poor people and turn its back to the rich part of town. And when you're a kid here, you're like, with your class, you go there in your school and you're like, oh, look how cool this costume is. But it's actually class warfare, just kind of ingrained in our culture. And I think that's really fucking beautiful.
That's a cool reference point. But now, unfortunately, I feel like an idiot because I should have considered that EI, particularly after living in Germany for 3 years, should be pronounced Greif and not Grief.
I mean, I kind of like the play on words, honestly. There's the flexibility to pronunciation, and it has sad songs on it, so it
Yeah.
makes sense.
Thank you. You've made me feel better about
I'm here
myself.
to
That was kind of
alleviate
you.
your nervousness.
So you have from the start, well, from the first album of the band, you've had a fairly quick turnaround between albums. Last album was in 2018, I think. Have I
No,
got that
no, no. I
wrong?
think we have one in 2020. Wait.
Oh no, sorry. Stranger Fruit was in 2018, and then the
Yeah.
self-titled was in 2022. That was what I meant to ask you was, aside from that break, you've had quite a quick turnaround. So I'm wondering what was the reason for the bigger break between those albums? Was it just COVID related, or was there some other cause of that?
I wish I had a cooler answer than that, but yeah, it's COVID related. We did put out an EP in our defense, but it's not an album, so
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't attack for inactivity. It was just
it
out of
felt like
curiosity.
one. It, it felt
I
like
need
an
to work on not
assault.
being so aggressive.
Oh shit.
Yeah, like
Um,
how big an impact did COVID have on you and the band? I mean, in a way, I should avoid asking the question about COVID when it's not necessary because it's like it just sort of feeds into everything. But it's a curious black hole that we all slipped into.
yeah, It feels so weird, but I think we were all in all kind of lucky. We got to tour still. I mean, we two people got really ill, so Legionella plus COVID, not a great combo. But it's such an inviting thing to make the COVID a pandemic, a personal thing. Like I actually had very troubling times, where it's just a global phenomenon. You were there. Everyone listening was there. We had the same thing.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. Where were you? Where did you get stuck?
I was scoring a theater piece in Zurich. I got stuck there, and then I went home. I was living with a flatmate who was let's say a cannabis enthusiast, and he yeah, expanded into other psychedelia at the time. It was a testing time for us all.
Now, around about, well, like a little bit earlier than the COVID time, there's something else I wanted to ask you about. I wanted to ask you about the merchandise branding of 2018, where you jokingly told fans to brand themselves, and then I think 8 people did. It reminds me a little bit of the Duchamp toilet. You know,
Yeah.
like I'm going to make a commentary about how ridiculous it is that people call this art, and then they end up calling it art.
Yep.
So tell us a bit, for those who don't know the story, what happened.
So like you said, we offered first it was just like free merch if you get a brand, but it was like this ridiculous proposal of, if you blindly want to follow something, and we were a new band at the time, you didn't know if we were terrible people or whatever, but you could blindly follow us and actually get a literal brand. And it was such a preposterous proposition, wow, that I didn't think that anyone would take us up on it, but 8 people did. And I learned that you have to be very specific and obvious with your statements.
Was this like the logo of the, like
Yeah,
with, it is a
yeah.
cool logo, to be fair. It's
I
not
mean,
it's not like having Trump tattooed on your forehead.
no, that would be very much cooler, but it's yeah, it's a fucking branding. It's for cattle, and it's a slave metal band. It should be obvious, but well, ever I don't know. Oh shit, I have an other interview now.
No sweat. I don't want to keep you from it. Yeah, well,
Yeah,
there we
this
go.
was a pleasant treat and a nice conversation, by the way.
It was very good to talk to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope that our paths will cross again, and
Me too.
I hope that you get a great reception for Greif, and I'm sure you'll get a positive review from Ghost Cult when that comes out. And yeah, it was great
Oh,
talking
the
to you.
the check came in. Cool.